Hi, today I'm reviewing the MSI Z890 Gaming Plus Wi-Fi 6 motherboard. Why? It's a good question. When MSI reached out saying they had a new Z890 motherboard that they were releasing soon, they asked if I wanted to review it, and I thought it was a great idea because in my previous video, when I reviewed the 270K Plus and the 250K Plus, I had a lot of issue getting memory to speed, while to expose speed, or in that case 6000 at CL30 and 7200 at CL36. So I was curious if I use another motherboard, even if it was one from MSI, if I would have the same problem. So this motherboard has like I said, Wi-Fi 6E, which I don't think for regular users, Wi-Fi 7 versus 6E would make a big difference anyways. You have 5 gig LAN, which is super important, and then you get one USB-C port on the motherboard. Even for a budget motherboard, it should sell at 209 USD. You still get plenty of I/O, so let's test that motherboard and see what we get. Now, for the marketing, one thing that they would push is saying that it's a balanced CPU and motherboard choice if you go with the Z890 motherboard. And they were also saying that you would reduce system costs by having an affordable Z890 motherboard. Let's talk about the spec first. You get Wi-Fi 6E, 5 gig networking, and you get 4 M.2 slot for storage, 1 at Gen 5 speed and 3 at Gen 4. So plenty of expansion possibility on this motherboard. Like I said, the price is 209 USD. And the motherboard have been provided to me by MSI directly, but I'm not keeping it, and I already sent it back. And I'm not compensated for that review, and they have no saying in what I'm gonna say. Now let's build the computer. Let's unbox the motherboard first. You also get Bluetooth 5.3. The graphic design is the same as my Wi-Fi 7 motherboard from MSI. One thing I appreciate is that it's set it directly on the heatsink, whereas the Gen 4 or the Gen 5 NVMe slot. So it's super well labeled all around the motherboard. It's a full ATX motherboard, so I feel there's plenty of space and it's easy to work with that motherboard. We can see the back I/O here. I do wish that there would be more than one USB port at the back, but it's plenty of I/O for Z890 motherboard. You get the Wi-Fi antenna and also extra cable like SATA cable in the box. I decided for this build to use my extra hardware, but because of cost of memory, I still needed to salvage the memory and my CPU for that build, so let's do that first. We can also see how both of the motherboard almost look identical because of the graphic design and the placement. I'm not gonna reuse this AIO for now. I'm gonna use one of my air cooler, but we still need to clean the CPU and the thermal paste on the plate. Like I said, for that build, I decided to use my extra hardware. The case is the Dark Base 701. It's almost a full tower size. The cooler is the Dark Rock Elite. For the PSU, I use the Pure Power 13M at 1000 watt. The GPU is the NVIDIA RTX 3070, and I use 2 hard drive for storage, the S70 Blade, which is a Gen 4 drive, and the Crucial 710, which is a Gen 5 drive. And the processor is the Intel 265K. I'm using an air cooler here that can cool up to 280 watt. And that should be close enough of the 292 watt the processor can do when PL2 is unlocked. I mounted the CPU and put the RAM. I'm using DDR5 6000 at CL30. We can see the cooler here mounted, and I didn't need to raise the fan because the memory is low profile enough. We can see them mounted with the GPU in the case. If you like wise the case upside down, it's because I inverted the case uh, to have the window on that side. You can see that there's plenty of space because the tower is really big. I also didn't try to cable manage it because 2 days later I would return the motherboard anyways. It was super smooth for the installation, and we can see it here with the cooler light up. Okay, let's talk about performance next. The first thing I did is run OCCT with the CPU burn test. The highest I would go is at 91 Celsius while being at 5.1 gigahertz. So I was not thermally throttled. The TG max is 105. So everything was working good with the cooler. I did a speed test uh, for wired connection with internet connection at 1.5 gig. I got to 1.87, so it was super fast. And for Wi-Fi 6E, I got to 756 Mbps. So the speed were quite good, wired and wireless. Okay, this mark was next. I got 8.5 gig for my Gen 5 drive and 5.9 gig for my Gen 4 drive. The speed is a little slower than on Windows, but I'm suspecting it's a driver issue on Bazite. But most users wouldn't see the difference between 8 or 10 while gaming or running benchmark. Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark was next. At 1080p high, we got an average of 197 FPS. And on ultra-wide resolution at IS setting, we got an average of 111 FPS. Baldur's Gate 3 was next. Using DLSS balance at 1080p with high settings, we got an average of 210 FPS. And in ultra-wide with ultra quality, we got an average of 128 FPS. Cyberpunk benchmark was next. Using ray tracing low, we got an average of 61.7 in ultra wide, and in 1080p medium, we got an average of 148.8. Okay, so what did I thought of that like Z890 Gaming Plus Wi-Fi 6 motherboard? First thing, I was super impressed. I was like, oh, finally a build that like worked the way it's supposed to. In an hour 30, the computer would build. I was not quick enough to go in the BIOS, and it found like on the Gen 4 drive old install of Windows from 2 years ago with a different CPU, and it boot anyways. So it was really easy. I didn't have any issue. Of course, I put a fresh Bazite on it just to make things a little easier and to make sure that everything was up to date. Didn't have, like I said, any issues. So if you're looking for a good motherboard and you decide that you want to build with Intel, that's like a great choice. I had a couple technical like glitch, but like one of them was like the speed of my NVMe, which can go to 7500, was around like 5.9 or 6 gig a second. Now, I'm suspecting it's more like the software I use or a Linux Bazite driver thing than the motherboard. And I would be really surprised if a user see the difference between 6 gig of 7 gig when like, being in Windows or playing games and things like that. So that was super interesting for that. But else, like everything was smooth. Performance were like where they're supposed to be when I check the frame rate for 3 or 4 games. It's like, so it's a really good choice. Now the negative, like there's not a lot. I wish there would be more I/O, like more USB-C at the back. But I understand that like you're trying to reach a price point, so you would cut certain feature. Now 6E versus Wi-Fi 7, I really don't think for most users it's gonna be like a big difference in the home settings. Like I see good performance at maybe like, I don't know, 750 Mbps, and I have a Wi-Fi 7 access point. So I don't see a big difference between the 6E and 7 in a downtown condo with everything's open and there's a lot of interference because I can see maybe 15 at work from where I am. Networking speed, my internet is at 1.5 gig and I was pulling 1.7, 1.8. So that was excellent. So I think the big issue with those motherboards is that the Z890 is a dead socket. So if you build a computer thinking like, well, I only change CPU maybe every 5 or 10 years, and you're able to get like, I don't know, 265K or 270K plus, you'll have a great combo productivity machine like with, I don't know, 24 cores. So that's going to be an amazing CPU. But if you are someone that like to change CPU like every, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, being on AM5 right now is going to be a better choice because they say end of 2027, but I'm pretty sure they will extend it. They just announced today that like they're bringing back the 5800X3D for the 10-year anniversary of AM4. So at least you would have platform longevity. Now Intel will release like new CPU probably like at CS next year. So with a new socket, so then that socket would have like more longevity, but at the same time, we don't know if there's going to be other refresh. If you need to build a computer today, and it's not just gaming you're thinking, but you also want like a computer for coding and where rendering, and the more core, the better. I really think that if you combine it with a 270K plus, you will have a winner in your hand. And the fact that like the motherboard is like always the cheapest, like for the Z890, I think it's a great combination. And that's how I choose my motherboard, like when I build with my 265K. What I need, I wanted Wi-Fi 7 and 5 gig networking, so I sort by that. Then I sort by price, and the MSI Gaming Plus Wi-Fi 7 that I had was the cheapest motherboard at 250 Canadian. So that's why I choose that motherboard. So I think MSI have a really good motherboard that's cover like all the base for like Z890 motherboard. And if you try it, you will have a solid experience because it was, in my case, like super smooth to build in and worth getting good performance. So thanks for watching and see you on the next one.